Okay, I thought we'd do something a little bit different this time. Obviously, I've been sitting in on these
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of podcast discussions, trying to go deep with other people and understand their position. So I thought this time, obviously, we know each other really well. I think we previously we had a funny way of meeting. I was actually on my honeymoon, my ill-fated honeymoon, which was the best lads holiday I've ever had. So you know me, you've seen my journey, and we've helped each other across, our ups and downs to where we are today. I think of everybody of people I've known previously, I think we've been really vulnerable and shared a lot with each other. And I think it's helped me, and hopefully it's helped you along that pathway. So why don't we flip the switch, and you can throw some stuff my way, and let's see where this goes.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things is really, it was our honeymoon. It was our honeymoon. That's the way I feel, at least. I think we're like 10
Well,
years married
me,
now.
me,
We
me, and you,
celebrated our
yeah,
10 year.
okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I can't believe that it's been 10 some odd years, right? I mean, better than I relative to that fateful day that you got married. But ultimately, one of the things that I've taken away from our relationship as it, just grown, is that you're very selfless. I first knew you as a manager of somebody, of many people in a warehouse, which can be a thankless job, and just managing people and being so focused on your brothers and focused on your friends, focused on me. Every time we talk, I feel like I'm the one that's telling you about what's going on in my life, but you are so patient to interject with what's going on in yours, which obviously you have a lot to be proud of. Why is that? Let's start there. Like, what's your why? What's driving that instant mode to helping others?
Great way to start. You fucker. You always straight in there.
Well,
No,
you
look,
asked me to do it.
no, no, great question. Great question. Um, First of all, thank you. I appreciate those words. That means a lot. I don't often think of it that way. For me, I go back to my kind of upbringing. I think I've always had a certain level of consciousness. I think people, when you talk about old souls or whatever you want to call it, I always see people have levels of consciousness like 1 to 5, and I always think naturally I've had a high level of consciousness. There's some people in world who are just happily plodding along, and they've got maybe a lower consciousness, so they're in the 1 to 2 spectrum, and they maybe just enjoy their life because they're totally unaware of levels of complexity within life and being a human being. And sometimes you can almost look at them and go, fucking hell, it might be better to be like that. So I think the level of emotional intelligence you have allows you to see the world a little bit differently. And from my family upbringing, every family has their turmoils, tragedies, toxic elements. And my family was no different. Beautiful family, a lot of love within there. My parents clearly loved us. My mum and dad would do anything for us. But yeah, I'm the middle child of 3 brothers. And my older brother, we've discussed, we know people within our lives. And I know you spoke around one of your sons, doing the teenage thing, bit of rebellion, going off the radar, and it causes a lot of problems, right? And that problem for you, then that toxicity that comes to affects the family. So my older brother, great guys, he's on the path of improving now. I think he's 50 now. Crazy that he's 50. But he went through that dark stage, drink, drugs, ultimately ended up in prison for a short spell. Now that brought a lot of pain to the family and a lot of toxicity. Being around all of that as a child who's very aware of what's going on. What I used to do is I was constantly thinking, could see the patterns in a conversation or an eye flicker or an energy in a room. So I was constantly thinking, I know where this goes. I don't want it to go there. So I'm going to try and refine and come in. So if I see, if my brother would come in, he'd be in a certain mood, I would almost kind of bamboozle him with conversation to try to flip him out of that mindset. I mean, my mother always tells a great story. I think she said I must have been around, I don't know, 8 or 9 years of age. And my mother went out with my auntie and my nan. My auntie and nan, unfortunately, both passed away now. Beautiful souls. But they went out for a meal. It might have been to celebrate my nan's birthday. And our Chris, maybe 14 years of age, little tearaway, steals the car, boots off down the road, turns up back at the house. Now I'm there back at the back of the house, 9-year old kid, and he comes through the door and he goes, "Just smashed the car." And I thought, okay, no. I said, okay. So I come out, front end's all smashed in. And he's standing there looking at me like, what do I do? And I'm like 8 or 9. And
Nine,
I
nine.
said, first thing is, I don't want you here when my mum comes back. She's going to hit the roof. So I said, like, piss off. So he's going, good idea. So he pisses off. So I'm at the end of the road. So I'm at the end of the path. The car's facing, the front end's facing the other way so they can't see. And I'm sitting there, this little kid going, okay, I'm going to sort this out. My mum come, in my mind, I've pictured how I can soften my mum and make it all sweet. And my mum comes out with my dad and my auntie and my nan, and I'm there going, right, mum, I've got something to tell you. And I really want, when I tell you this, can you really deal with it and take it calmly? Straight away, she's going, just tell me. And I'm going, no, you need to promise me you'll be calm. And she's like, okay, I promise you'll be calm. And I'm like, okay. I said, Chris has smashed the car. She wasn't calm. She lost her shit. She lost her shit. I think she ended up locking herself in the bathroom and all kinds of things were breaking at some point. But she always describes the fact that when she looked back, this little 8-year-old boy trying to solve a problem ahead of the problem. And that's something that I've always been aware of. So I see patterns in people. So you can talk to me, and because of the experience I've had, which have then traveled through my own problems, my own teenage years into business, I can read people and I know where it goes. And I don't want people to have the same pain or suffering sometimes that I would have had or have seen other people experience. So I've got this burning desire to go, it doesn't need to be this way. And that followed me into my business life. And I think it really helped me within business life because, coming from Liverpool, having that kind of almost street mentality, because, it's a bit rough and tumble and, to get by, you have to have that side. So within business, it was the same. I would watch things and I would say, I know what this person's doing, might be an element of bullying or a leader being an arsehole or something. And kids pull them in and say, hey, you're affecting this person like this. I can see what you're doing. Let's refine that. So because of my own experiences, and that was just one of many, I've got this real passion I think people have to learn through the pain, no doubt. I think that's where your biggest growth comes from. That's the duality of life that we talk around. I always say when your pain's coming so much, look forward to when the magic's about to happen, as long as you take action towards the thing. You've got to do the thing. I was actually at Chris Williamson seminar on Saturday. I was happy to be a guest there and actually met him. One of the things that he said was, you've got to do the thing. Talking about the thing isn't doing the thing. Telling your friend about the thing isn't doing the thing. Write it down, put in your calendar to do the thing isn't doing the thing. And then get the picture. He went on for about 5 minutes, which really landed the message. So as long as you then do the thing when you're in the pain, you can get yourself out and then the lesson comes with you. But I also believe there's a lot of people in situations, maybe environments that aren't what they're doing or, which maybe they don't need to suffer as much. So my passion comes from, I think there's some simplistic tricks and equations, just like in business, there's equations for success. I believe within humanity, there's equations for success. And with the framework that I'm doing, I think we can help people not suffer as much, but still get the lesson. If that kind of answers your question.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Good way to kick off there. And we talked about the cheat code in our first chat when I was talking about my kids and how I feel like there's some things that I could tell them that could perhaps shortcut some setbacks and, financial hardships and just generally speaking, emotional challenge that I've had over the last 30 years that if they took the cheat code, they could perhaps be 10 or 15, 20 years advanced beyond what I was when I was 25 or 30, 35 years old. So, who knows, and not everybody will be willing to accept the gifts you give them, but the work that you're doing is obviously going to have a net positive impact on humanity. So good on you for doing that. I appreciate you asking me to lead the conversation. And honestly, there are a couple of things that really stuck out when I've done a bit of pre-work here and recognized there, you've come a long way, man. You've come a long way. And I look at you as a role model, not only as a friend or as a brother, but just somebody sort of like, what would Ian do kind of thing goes off in my mind when I'm having or faced with some challenges. So good stuff. Keep up the good work. And I know that we together, along with the team you've assembled, are going to have a huge impact in the years to come. Really pumped about it.
No, I appreciate that, my friend.
I want to start with, want to start with a couple things you hit on, and the duality of life is very clear with me when I look at your numbers. 26, 27, 28% at your lowest, nearly perfect. Now, if you were to take a point in time, any day, that number might shift a little bit, right? You might miss a gym session, or you might not feel like you're connected with your missus as much, or whatever the case may be. But ultimately, you're pretty darn strong now. What were the biggest contributing factors that marched you through the midpoint into the place you are now in the journey that you're on? What were the biggest contributing factors that have really allowed you to improve as a human?
Yeah. So for me, the lowest point was when I was in corporate, really senior role, dealing with people at the top who weren't authentic. I always say, you have these visions on the corporate, poster in the office, we are this, and then you realize we're not this. It's more of a sell. A business, many businesses do, and as you climb up and you're then in a boardroom or you're in the thing, you realize these people here, some of them are full of shit, and they've kind of just, I call them just unhappy journeymen. They've got to a position in their role, they maybe can't get any further. They probably get pissed off. They see other people coming through and they want to put a block on them. They're really unhappy in where they are. They probably hit their ceiling. But also how they engage with people. It's really frustrating. So my ultimate and then if your working life flow, when you're at that top level, you're probably doing 50, 60 hours a week, right? So you're maxed out. And if you don't really have that understanding of the other pillars, they just drop away because all of your time and effort is doing the job, thinking about the job, thinking about the pain, or what am I going to do next? So your waking hours, you could be 70, 80% of your waking hours, it's about the pain involved within work. And that's what got to me. And that was at my lowest. And I think I've told you before, it got to a point where, I went to the hospital, thought I was having a brain tumor, but turned out it was just stress. And I was close to burnout. So that was a thing that got me on the move. Then I went on the move. So I was conscious. I actually started meditation. I paid $1,500 for a meditation course. And as humans, you pay money. It makes you do the thing sometimes. So I went went on this weekend meditation course, and that helped me. So I then consistently kept that up. That helped me come back a little bit to my true authentic self, because I was constantly in the fog of the shit, all of these emotions and things which aren't you. Those aren't you. So all of this crap that's going through my mind, I allowed myself to think this stuff, and I was forgetting about my authentic self. So I hadn't done inner work before. I thought it was woo-woo. I didn't even understand what consciousness meant. I was people saying, what does that mean? Be present. I'm always fucking present. I didn't understand. But once I started going on that work, I found myself getting a little bit calmer. I felt myself being able to deal with emotions better. And it kind of started me on the journey. I then got into, I then had an opportunity I was coaching people, doing executive coaching, and I was going to go full blast down that route. But a friend of mine had an opportunity for starting up a corporate team building, axe throwing, darts, all this type of stuff, a business, which, as you know, I've now started. We've got 3 venues, very successful around Sydney. So I went into that. So I pulled out a corporate and I went into that, but I hadn't took time to reflect and change how I operated. So I kind of came out of corporate and went straight into this in the same way, thinking I should be working this amount of hours and running like 1,000,000 miles an hour. So I had the opportunity to have more freedom and reflect and enjoy my life better, but I didn't. So I kept running 1,000,000 miles an hour. And then I was in a relationship and I hadn't had, we talk about love and relationships. I hadn't asked myself the questions, the first 2 questions in the love and relationships pillar. Do you understand your non-negotiable values in a relationship? Number 2, have you had that discussion with your partner? No, I didn't do either. So what I did is I had an imbalance in that relationship, nothing to do with her. She's her, I'm me. If we, suited to some people, the equation didn't work out, right? So we were like this. I'm 6 months down the line, we're, going out, honeymoon, drinking. Next minute, we're living together. And it wasn't right. So then I kind of go into that. My true authentic self knows it's not right, but it takes a while because you're going, I'm doing all this business. I'll deal with it over there. So I'm walking in vanilla land. And that's kind of where I got to in that 65% zone. So I'd leveled up because I got really painful. I got to this point thinking I'm okay. And again, that 65 would go up and down somewhat, sometimes a lot further down and this, that, and the other. But it got to a point where that vanilla that little niggle of the authentic self coming through on the daily, on the weekly, it got to a point where then that became too painful because over a period of time it chipped away at me. And then I'm like, something's not right, something's not right. And I had to then reflect again, and having this kind of framework to sense check, I was like, I'm off. These things aren't right. And it's actually what forced me into, not forced me, it was like a calling. So I had this calling to kind of start looking things in a simplistic framework. And by doing it, it helped me. Then I realized my relationship wasn't right. And as soon as I pulled out of that relationship, it was like, well, that was a big weight. That was just wrong. And I really kind of came through. And then I went to that next phase. And this is where I created this kind of model. And then I kind of started, eating what I was putting on the table. And I started elevating more. But you made a point before, nearly perfect 96, not nearly perfect at all. I fuck up daily. I go backwards daily. But I have the framework to check. And that 96 is a holistic, simplistic framework to help people, because most men, most women are really low or mid-range. They don't understand the mechanics of the success equation. So what I'm trying to do is keep it simple so it does collect a lot of people, and then you can go deeper later. So that 96%, there's levels I can go, and I can ramp those questions up to go deeper.
And you took that point. I was going to take the piss and absolutely not call you perfect, by the way, and knowing full well who you are. But the way, bringing it back to Liverpool and the Beatles, right? The collective genius is really what created that awesome music that they had over decades. And, if you look at the 5 bits that the pillars are very different, right? But if they're all matched up and working together in harmony, it really does create some level of genius. So, really, really good stuff. And I also would say that even in your lowest point, your fitness was high, but you weren't getting the same out of those workouts then as you are now, coming out of the gym, a clearer head, a much more thankful and grateful mind, saying, wow, I really appreciate the fact that I have 2 arms, 2 legs, and a body to be able to bring to the gym. You were just going into the gym to get fit, to get to the bar, to get on the piss, and obviously do what you did, right? So, like, the fact of the matter is even your highest score was low in that regard. And I think that's a big step back where we can talk to people and say, let's use some of your strength, build off of that, and then by that, everything's going to continue to go. Even your strongest is going to continue to get stronger.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I wasn't doing any work, even though that health and fitness was my safety net. If I go back to, I was working for DHL in Australia, New Zealand, and we were transforming this really painful business. I was kind of put in, it was struggling, going to be a $2 million loss, should have been a 1.5 million annual profitable business. And everybody was struggling. I walk into this warehouse, there's 200 more staff than needed. It was losing like an arm leg. But the biggest thing was everybody's eyes were going, and you can walk around, you think, burnout, burnout, burnout. I was like going, you go home, you go home, you go home. And it was like 7 days a week. So I had to do the health and fitness because I had no wins in any of the pillars. And at that point, I didn't understand the pillar framework. I just knew I needed a win. Everything was dropping: social, romantic, nutrition, wasn't as good as it could be. But I thought, right, I need this win. So I'd get up even earlier, maybe 4:30, get the gym, and then get to work. And then I think, at least I've got something. Now, without that, where I was, where would I have got to? Because I was really, really struggling at that point. And as you come to know, in a lot of businesses, people say they care, but they don't really care. When I went into that warehouse, there was a lot of eyes going, right? And I was like, go home. Shit, there's people on a knife edge here. And I really wanted to help people through that. But if I didn't have that safety net, who knows?
Yeah, you talk about when you're your lowest point, corporate was certainly a major contributor. Isn't there something to unpack there relative to corporate? Because not every organization, even the largest, DHL is a massive multi-billion-dollar euro turnover business, but not all businesses, not even parts of DHL, I'm assuming that they're going to be really well run and managed properly, and teams that are happy and fulfilled, and people going home and enjoying family and all the things going right. But it just, what I'm saying is that not all corporate is bad. There is a way to help corporate out through this lens as well. Have you started to think about that?
Yeah, 100%. What you just described there is spot on. It's not about a business. And again, in that position, there was no bad people there. It was the circumstance. It was a business come in. It was unknown. It was highly complex, and it wasn't set up for success because it was just it was tougher than we thought. So everybody got burnt out, right? And there was nothing untoward there. And you're right, within a lot of businesses, I've worked at DHL with some phenomenal people, some beautiful leaders. A really good friend of mine, Andrea Spicking, probably one of the best leaders I've ever come across. And he's somebody that I look up to from how he operates as a human, and I really respect him for that. And some of them still connected to this day. But I think it's not about the business, it's about the leader. I always say one leader can affect people in the hundreds, if not thousands. Because if you look at it, I always say you've got one good leader, one bad leader. If he's leaning the wrong way, that employee or multiple team members can feel unheard, unloved, or unappreciated, and therefore that's toxic for a human. They go home, they kick the dog, they fall out with their partner. That affects the kids. They're thinking about this all the time. The energy drops. So you think about the ripple effect. All of a sudden, hundreds. Then they turn up to a barbecue. Everyone's pissed off. The energy drops of the friends. It's so impactful, that one leader. So I think it's not about the corporation. It's about the leaders within. And within this movement, there is a corporate arm to the business as well. There is a program we go through where we help people understand themselves. Because before we talk about good leadership, how do you show up as a good leader? And it's the same fundamentals. Yeah. It's understanding the 5 pillars. So you turn up and show up and understand. And it's like if you're in a position where somebody pisses you off in work, and you can get angry, right? Well, what's that anger? Oh, as a boundary being crossed. Why is the boundary being crossed? Okay, let's look at that. Who is this person? I can clearly see this person is programmed wrong, or doesn't understand their true authentic self yet. So actually, you can give a bit of empathy towards that person, talk to them differently, and deal with it rather than become attached to that emotion. Just look at it without the fluff and go, what's happening here? And then interact. Just like in a relationship, it's the same within business. So it's all the same.
Yeah. You hit on emotional intelligence earlier. I think that's often an overused phrase. I think that it's a misunderstood term, and most people throw it around as though they know what they're talking about. In fact, they don't. And what you just hit on was exactly what emotional intelligence is showing up where people are and approaching a challenge or a situation that they might be jammed up by in a way that calms them down and de-escalates them, versus coming to somebody using your own style, which may be great for you, but for them may escalate the situation. And emotionally understanding where each individual is when you connect with them is really what allows the rubber to meet the road in those conversations. You do that phenomenally, by the way. I mean, you show up to my conversations, I might be kind of ramped up about something, and you just, I leave the conversation feeling more calm. I can't remember a conversation I hung up the phone, like, that didn't really,
that asshole
selfishly fulfill anything for me. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? And by the way, I have a lot of good friends, great friends, wonderful friends that I've known for since childhood. And that doesn't happen. Right. So that's certainly a superpower that you're plugging into. And I'm glad you are, because it's a highly valued trait to have.
No, yeah, that's a good point. I agree. A lot of people talk about it, and they have courses on emotional intelligence and stuff, and I don't necessarily think some of them do give the required result. And I think certain people just have it.
Well, yeah. I mean, some people are disciples, and some people are the saints that those disciples follow, right? And ultimately, your work here, it has to do with leading something you're passionate about, and obviously good men helping good men and beyond is something that you're passionate about, partially to do with your ability to handle these conversations, de-escalating challenges, putting people in a better headspace. But if you could, I mean, at what point did you say, I've got something here? And I mean, I can feel it over the last 12 or so months, but what were the big contributing factors when the light bulb went on and said, no, I'm leaning into this and I'm going to try to drive a more scalable version of what I'm doing on a human level, on an individual level?
Yeah, it was probably about 18 months ago. I'm working with a corporate kind of executive leadership business who kind of sell products. They're, a large pool of consultants, and I was coaching this COO, and they, as part of their introduction, they put you on this course, and it's a Brené Brown course, Dare to Lead. And I was watching this course and how they did it and there's a real vulnerability element to it. And I was looking at it, I was thinking, right, this is powerful. And I was like, okay, I know how I could do this. And I was already framing these, not knowing where it was going. I was already framing these kind of 5 pillars myself through coaching. So I was doing one-on-one coaching with execs and stuff like that. And so I'd come up with this little equation because every time I was asking something, they would usually talk to me about a problem within work. But then you scratch beneath and you go, uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. And you go through the pillars and you can ultimately, and then you can find that usually the root, it might be in love and relationships or health and fitness because they used to be a karate champion, for example. And that happened to me. And then that stopped. And then they've let themselves go and they don't feel happy with themselves and the nutrition's off. They're not happy with their body. They're not happy mentally. So then they show up into their love and relationship. They're not happy there. They're niggling. Then they show up to work. And so this ripple effect. And I used to find I could get to the root and go, okay, before we focus here, let's talk about this. And it would sometimes surprise people and would work. And then it's like humans, we operate well on fulfillment. So it's like that fulfillment juice. Now, it's like whether if you haven't, if you used to run marathons, but you haven't done anything in 2 years, whether you run 1 mile or 100 miles, you will get the same level of fulfillment as a human. You go, movement. So I would start getting movement through the steps. And sometimes I get to work third, fourth or fifth time. So that's what I was doing. Then I watched this I was part of a really cool kind of corporate program. And it was this elements of these vulnerable breakout rooms. And I was sharing with somebody deeper than I have with my family because it was just, this is the question, talk about it, 2 individuals. You didn't know them. And we're both so vulnerable. And I came out I was like people have said to me, like 10 years of therapy in 10 minutes, I came out lighter. I felt like I had a real bond with that human. It really, really helped. So I was like, light bulb, I think I've already got this framework is working now. I can almost see how I can frame this into something that's scalable. And for me, workshops and stuff are great, but I'm a big believer it has to be scalable for humanity right now, which is why within the Good Men and Good Women, there's going to be an app, and the whole ethos of the app is to use this methodology to use the thing that's disconnected society to bring us together. And that will be with physical meetups and stuff like that as well, but just a connection between 2 people via this kind of technology, which is the device.
So you're building a business, you're building a framework that is somewhat profound. You don't just pop on to Google and find it, right? This is while we have others and we talked about, other concepts, people that have tried to pioneer, so forth. You're this space is very I mean, the curve is not flattened yet relative to men's suicide, right? It continues to go up. So frankly, there isn't enough resources out there. You're pioneering this. This is fantastic. But in any business that you're building, whether it's the most desired in-demand product or least, there's going to be headwinds, some greater than others. What's the biggest headwind you're facing right now as you're trying to build this, scale this, and get this out to an audience broader than just your circle of, your circle of connections, business-wise, so forth?
Yeah, so obviously with the early stages, the good thing is over the last 18 months, we've got the framework. So that we've got like a workbook. The Good Men one is done. The Good Women one is done. We're focusing on good men first, just because they're the worst hit statistically right now. Suicidality, they're the highest, and it's growing. It's unprecedented. But the framework is easily kind of translated through to, good women, got the corporate wellness accelerator program, and ultimately, there'll be a children's initiative as well. That hard work, the rest of the stuff is just time and effort. So that's been kind of done. We've got a program we can run. It can be easily translated into a book. But we are here at the early stage. The corporate arm will probably go first because the Good Men Helping Good Men requires the app because we want it to be scalable. I don't just want to, as powerful as it is, and I will do them, I don't just want to run, a seminar with 40, 50 people, 100 people, whatever. I want it to go scale so every human has the opportunity to realize this simplistic equation for success, for fulfillment with it, being a human. Now, what do I see the biggest barriers for reach? I think in this day and age, it's all about marketing and, those big social influencers and stuff. And when you start low, it's kind of, you're building that brand, for want of a better word. But what the thing is, because this is all about authenticity and has to be done right, you don't want any stupid gimmicks and tricks or something that goes through, because that's not real. I want it to be the word of what this is getting out by itself, because I want it to be authentic. So that might be a barrier for the scale that we want to hit, because humanity's suffering now. It needs to get out there. And that's why I see the opportunity of tapping into, a big player, in this space. And I classify the likes of Stephen Bartlett, Chris Williamson. These are people who are obsessed with suicidality. They've done like 30, 40, 50 podcasts on men's mental health, women's mental health. And I've even heard Stephen Bartlett say, I am obsessed with suicidality. Well, I'll put my hand up. I agree with you. I'm in exactly the same space. So this is all going to kick. And at the right time, it kicks. If I can connect to one of those big players to get just to get it out there and to point to this, I believe that's the biggest opportunity. I look at things as opportunities. Yes, there's these barriers, but I think there's a real opportunity. Once we kind of get this package up and we start moving, connecting to one of them makes this go pop. And when it goes pop, every human has the ability to understand themselves. Obviously, as a human, there's free will. So some people go, oh, I don't want to see that. Like anything in life, you and I can sit there. We discussed the other week, you've got your son upstairs. You've got a success equation. Is he going to listen? No, he's going to say, piss off, Dad. But he might listen to somebody else. And so, this kind of,
that's definitely, that's a key piece to the puzzle. It's not an if, it will certainly happen. It's proven that children will listen to someone. If a message delivered from a parent compared to a friend, a mentor, a coach, so forth, same message, they're going to listen to that coach, friend, mentor before the parent. That's a proven fact. So this vehicle you're creating is opening up a door that's absolutely required. And it's not because of a poor message or delivery of message or poor relationship. It's just, frankly, kids will listen to others before they listen to their parents oftentimes. Especially in that mid to late teen year where they're starting to feel like their independence is growing. Oh, I'm going to show my parents I want to do this better than they did it, right? So absolutely critical piece therein. I couldn't agree with you more. That's going to be a huge, huge factor to this success and scaling.
100%. Yeah. And I think
I'm looking forward to watching that. I don't know if there's any data we could actually track on that, but we'll have to find the efficacy here with regards to stick rate once we start playing in that sort of demographic, because I think the stick rate's going to be huge.
Yeah, I agree. And you're spot on. And that's why I think so excited about getting this collection of good men together with the same mentality, who are authentic, who can be perceived as successful or whatever. Because I talk around, relatively successful, got a business that goes well, this, that, and the other. But I've had my dark times during that journey.
Yeah.
And like, instead of sitting up the top, because, that demographic is listening to, some people who have great, so, 50% is fucking great. And then 50% is way off. They might talk about women differently or this, that, and the other. And it's like, no. Men and women need to work in symbiosis, divine masculine, divine feminine. And there's an authentic message here, which I don't think has been reached. And we're not all going to hit it. I don't hit it, but there's got to be a kind of a standard bearer of how you carry yourself as a human being. And I think if we have a strong enough collection of people that people look at and go, yeah, okay, this guy or this lady or whoever, I'm buying into them. They're holding this standard and they're showing us that it can be bumpy and I might not always achieve it. We cock up daily and being vulnerable. Maybe that's the thing that demographic will listen to more so than a parent,
Yeah, absolutely. A couple things crossed my mind. One is that you could have balance on one half of the scale, but imbalance on the other half. That imbalance is going to throw things off and could put you onto a tilt mode pretty quickly. I had an experience a couple of weeks back, actually, on a soccer field. I was officiating a game. The defender pulled down a attacker, called a foul, but while the attacker was on the ground, he then swung aggressively his foot to kick him while he was down. So aggressively, his shin pad popped out of his sock. Wow. Obviously, we blew the whistle. We came in and we red carded him off. He went. Second half, I was on the other side of the field. I was talking to the coach in between a couple of plays, and he said, "I'm so sorry. I apologize. I can't believe what could have gotten into him." I said, "Coach," oftentimes officials, coaches, and even parents will immediately jump to the conclusion of they did something awful. But I would ask you this, and this is true, God's honest truth. 2 years ago, Kevin would never have had something this profound to say, by the way. I said, "Coach, we don't know what was going on in this kid's life before the game. We don't. So we have to seek to understand that before we immediately cast judgment and blame. Granted, you can't be kicking players on the ground." And as a coach, your job to be a leader is to go find out why that was done, because it wasn't just because that person was on the ground. There's something else they're triggering it. So really being in tuned to all pillars and all factors all of the time, because all it takes is one simple thing to throw things off. And I've had that happen recently, where you think you're going along, you're 95, 96, 97% clicking along, and then all of a sudden you put your dog down or your kid does something stupid, and then you just go kind of off, right? So being in tune to all that is going to be critical in order to keep this sustainable.
Yeah, good point. That I'm sure that kid is, he's attached to some emotions. He's run around his head, and behind that, he's there's a problem with his authentic self, and that's where it's coming out from, right? And I think that's great, and
Yeah,
that's what coaches and mentors should do. Let's get to the bottom. Where's it come from? As you say, it's the tip of the iceberg, the reaction, right?
absolutely. I believe our job as early adopters to this mindset is to do what I did with that coach, which is not agree and say, yeah, that player did something awful, but to challenge back to that coach to say, find out why they did that. Because if we can do that, and we can do it again and again and again, think about all the children, as you point, one could affect 100 or even 1,000, and you're going to start to see scalable measure. Again, I want to go back to the data, and I know we don't have that right now, but to pull up the data on 15 to 20-year-old boys committing suicide. And I would like to take that and see what the numbers are there, because I don't think it's good. Post-COVID,
No, no, no.
in this day and age with
It.
social media, it's
Oh,
off the
mate.
charts.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't got the specific data in front of me, but we have the data as part of what we're doing, and it's gone through the roof as well. And one of the biggest, anxiety has gone through the roof. Loneliness has gone through the roof. That age group, and there's a clear delineation from when the Apple iPhone kicks in to all of these, loneliness, anxiety, all goes through the roof. And obviously it's affecting our kind of teenagers and children on a mass scale. And children are killing themselves, again, at an unprecedented rate. There's no kind of age group that's hasn't took a massive hit in all of these human emotional problems that is ultimately rooted in high suicidality. There's high suicidality in every demographic, every age, and nobody is safe from it. And yeah, some of the things that I've heard recently, I've heard people describe things, and it's almost like a disease the way they talk about it. It's like they were talking about, obviously from a good men perspective. One of the things that I was listening to somebody last week, I think it was on a Chris Williamson podcast, and he described that basically feeling undervalued and having a lack of purpose for a man is almost fatal. It's almost fatal. And I said on a previous podcast, I couldn't get my head around that. I'm saying almost fatal. That's like a disease. That's like, and when you understand that ages 25 to 45, it's the leading cause of death in men, more than cancer, more than diseases, it is a fucking disease. And there isn't enough going to it. And this is why I'm so passionate about this, because there's an equation to it. And instead of going so in depth in one of the pillars, which is beautiful, there's beautiful people doing it. There's great apps out there. I love them all. And I appreciate what everybody's trying to do. But some of it's too detailed. Some of it's overwhelming. Pull up, get movement in the pillars, and then we can go deeper afterwards. Get the momentum. And that's what we need, because too much of it is too overwhelming for too many people. And especially the stigma attached to mental health. So you've got to call it something different. That's like fulfillment. And that's why we don't want to have, suicide prevention is fantastic, but there's a stigma attached to the word suicide. So somebody doesn't want to admit that, and then it's already too late. And when you get to that point, what are you going to do? It's catching them before they fall over here in a way that's more consumable. It's more appealing to people to go into, and creating that brotherhood of connection through technology to bring us together.
That resonates deep with me, because sort of, doing really well, recruited to a pretty important position for a company that was globally present, lose that job, obviously that kind of put myself on a different trajectory to begin the year. And then, the family and whatnot there, just more challenge. And then, I get to a point middle of the year and I was down and out. And, we've talked a lot during that period of time. And I finally said, I've got to take a step back. And the root cause of a lot of that was self-value, honestly. Just a lack of self-confidence, and I project confidence. That's not anything that is surprising to hear, but projecting confidence and what you feel inside are two different things. I was faking it, and because of that and addressing it, I've felt so much clearer in the last few months. And not to say I'm perfect, and like you said, even at 96%, it's a challenge every day, but much more self-aware and where I need to lean in to make sure that I've got good balance across those pillars and then some. So absolutely.
No,
You have to have self-value. By the way, a disease it is, and it causes other diseases like drinking. You know, you have this disease that's, causing suicide, but it also, if you don't kill yourself, you're going to drink yourself to death. And ultimately, so many people belly up at the bar after work and have 7, 8, 10 pints, and then they go home and they reset and they do the same thing over and over and over again. They're not just going to have one with a nice meal or a glass of wine. They're drinking themselves to death. So if they're not killing themselves immediately, they're drinking themselves to death one way or the other, they're screwed. So they've got to figure it out.
no, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, thanks for being vulnerable there. And I know we've had conversations with me about that. And I've been in the same boat when I was I always project confidence as well. And anyone asks me, great. You know what I mean? And because I always want to trick myself into being great anyway, right? You want to manifest how
Yeah.
you want your life to go through. But similar to yourself, the period of time in that transition when I was in that 65, I went lower because that lack of purpose, because I'd achieved some success in the business. It was now running itself. And I was like, where's my purpose? I don't want just to have money. I don't want just to have a nice house. I want a beautiful, loving relationship. And I want to have something that gets me out of bed and I know I'm driving towards a cause. And this cause has given me that. I fucking, every single day I get up and I'm like, I've got ideas coming to me and I have to kind of almost reframe them and prioritize what I can get at, because, I want to change the world today, But back then, I found myself sleeping more. I was less energy. I get drained in the day. I'd sometimes eat. I've never ate proper shit, but sometimes I want a packet of crisps or something, and I would eat some stuff just for comfort. You know what I mean? Because just felt like really vanilla. So I've been there with you, my friend, and it's not a good space.
Don't judge me because I have crisps, man. Like I mean, you're a healthier eater than I am. Don't judge me there.
No judgment, my friend.
But
No
no, you're right.
judgment.
There's something to be said about comfort food, right? Comfort food isn't the celery and the lettuce and the high protein diet. It's the shit.
Yeah, and it is the shit when you eat it, right? The shit is the shit.
It is. It is. Oh, I remember back in the day when we first met, and you were just so excited about Sundays, your Domino's pizza and your candy.
Yeah.
So even back in Liverpool when you were still trying to figure things out, and you were always that healthier eater. I was like asking you, like, what do you do and how do you approach eating, right? So you've always been healthy regardless of mentally where you checked in. But I give you credit for being a hell of a lot more resilient to your bad eating
No,
habits that
exactly.
I cave into all the time.
Mate, I've just found a way to how I eat now. It's routine. It's now ingrained in me, and I love. I have my own burgers. No bun, but I make my own mince patty burgers, cheese on them. Mate, what's not to like about burgers with cheese on? You know what I mean?
No,
So I enjoy
no.
what I eat. But we digress. But no, I really appreciate you being there, vulnerable.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good. So, the one big question, I think it'll maybe help close the loop on this conversation. Again, I couldn't thank you more for asking me to help drive the discussion. I've known you for a long time now. I can say it. It's certainly a relationship with many hours invested. So I appreciate that. And it's been too long since we've connected in person. It's going to happen sooner than later. Sooner. I promise I'll be getting down there sooner than later. But what's the one bit of advice that you give often, but struggle to do yourself? I know there's something there. And I think at this point in your life, I would love to understand, and for the audience, understand what you're challenged with right now. Talking about vulnerability and also just the idea of, doing what you say, not just as you do.
Well, two things. What advice would I give? The first thing, because I almost I just want to say what I would say what would I say to me when I was
Mm,
younger? I almost don't know on that one because it's like, I'm not sure if all that is meant to happen because I'm me and I've got, this is me now and that's the program. And did I need to shortcut any of that? But it felt so fucking painful
yeah,
when I was doing it. I'd like to
yeah,
think I would give myself some advice of my knowledge now and hand select some things which would alleviate some of the pain, maybe move out of the job earlier, don't need to suffer as much as that, have your loving relationships discussions. But would that, it's like somebody, being born with a silver spoon in their mouth. You've got that pathway, but are you going to be as fulfilled? So that's something I'm still coming to terms with for my younger self.
yeah,
I definitely would make it easier. I think, I'd definitely say, hey, with
yeah,
relationships, do this. But if I did that, then I wouldn't be with my partner now, and it's the best relationship ever.
yeah,
So I don't know, but I think I'll drop a few things in there, like that Back to the Future. With when he gives him that, when he gives him that thing so he can win all the money. I don't think I would do that,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I would do something to help to speed up the progress. What advice would I give somebody today?
Look at it this way, one of the exercises that you don't enjoy doing but has big payoff in the end. What is that exercise relative to what you're doing today? What is the one exercise that you really aren't necessarily drawn to as much, but you see high payoff and you're really committed to it and have been over the last several months?
Okay, the biggest thing I would say, I use the analogy: if you can see it, you can manage it. So we have all these things running around our head. So I would literally,
Uh,
what I always say is, you get your pen out, let's jot it down, right? So what are these things? Get it down. And then what I always do is I look in my calendar. I actually have just an Excel spreadsheet which I can use. It's part of one of the programs we do. And I think it's really powerful. So I just say, look at what does your week currently consist of? And if you look in the love and relationships pillar, the work and life flow, inner work, so it's connection. Look at the pillars and say, how does my week currently look like? Okay. Am I happy? No. And I need to do some things in there. So I think, like in business, unfortunately, people think, oh, I don't need to be that organized. Well, you do if you want to get yourself out of a hole. And you can do that
uh,
by literally jotting it down and go, okay, is anything stopping me from doing that? No, it's just me walking that path. So I say, understand where you are today, jot it down and say, what would a better week look? And it doesn't need to be perfect. Just start with those baby steps. Okay, so next week, I'm going to lock in my calendar this, and this. And it's only you that does it. So then, as I said before, you then just do the thing. And when you do the thing,
yeah,
you'll get fulfilled. And I think that one, I always say to people, stop running around your own head. A lot of people, they can run around their own head. They're doing all the stuff. They don't take anything, but they're giving them the poison. They're eating they're passing the poison from the brain into the body. And this poison loops running around your whole body. And they're not taking
uh,
the action. They're not doing the thing. What I say is, once you kind of get it all out, instead of waking up every morning and go, ping, give me the pain. Think of pain all day, go to sleep, wake up, ping, run through. You've got to get that out of your head. And it's incredibly therapeutic, and it's incredible. It gets it out of your head. It's like when you wake up at 2 a.m. with an idea. If you write it down, you can go back to sleep. If you don't, it runs around your head. It's the same with problems.
uh,
Get it down on paper and then take the actions to do it. I think that is so
uh,
powerful. I do it with everybody at coach, and it's kind of a game changer. So using that thing, if you can see it and manage it, get out your head, take some actions, baby steps. The baby steps give you fulfillment. You will feel better. You don't have to do 10 things, do one, and then spread that over 10 weeks and get the regular fulfillment juice that you get.
yeah,
One thing I would point out is, though, it doesn't always go your way. And as much as I know all this framework, I'm regularly catching myself. I might let an emotion come through. I do it,
mhm,
my partner, Katia, is a beautiful human being, and she's my mirror. And I regularly, even today, as much as the work I'm doing, I know I'm on a growth journey and I've got so much work to do. But regularly, I might say something short or not behave in the way I believe that we should carry yourself as my, it's going against my authentic self, because I know when I say
yeah,
something good, I'm like, fuck, but I'm caught in the emotion, catch myself quicker. And that's the important thing,
uh,
understanding the framework, how you should carry yourself, what's right, what's wrong as a human, and going, okay, what is this? Give yourself space, understand, and then going back and say, hands up, sorry, that was me. I'm
yeah,
really trying to work on that. I think that's key because none of us are perfect. I fuck up every day, but I try my best, and I'll keep trying my best until I continue to grow.
Yeah, good. In closing out, one of the questions I had was, what do you think holds people back? You talk about not doing that thing, right? Understand that. I think the message was received there, and it can be hard sometimes. You get to the gym, you put a good lift in, but you don't do the core, or you don't jump on the treadmill for 20. And so
Maverick agrees.
your
Look,
goal is pushed out another day.
he's
Listen,
ready to
yeah,
go.
listen,
He's ready to go for a run. Look,
it's 5:07 here, and he knows that the dog is smarter than I am. He is a
I know.
creature of habit. He knows it's time for people to start coming in the door. B, food in the bowl, and then just social. His pillars are simple. It's food and comfort. If he has food and comfort, he's happy as a clam. And frankly, right now he has neither.
His fulfillment scores low. You best sort it out. Poor Maverick.
Yeah, right, right.
Look, he's on to it.
Side eyes.
Yeah. All right, mate.
Good shout, man. And listen, I think this is the part one of, 2 or 3 or whatever. And I think that there's already some ideas, kicking around. To spare the audience a long form, I think this would be a great time to wrap up. But ultimately, I can't thank you enough for asking me to help with this conversation. B, the work you're doing truly, just spot on. And frankly, our journeys crossed 10 years ago, and over the course of the last 10 years, we've had put and take in terms of how often we connect, but the work that you're doing has brought us back to, if not more, cadence and communication than ever. So that's just another added bonus to all this that you're doing. So good shout, man.
No, beautiful. All right, Kev. Thanks so much for doing it, my friend. And obviously we'll catch up in the week.
Sounds good. Cheers.
Cheers, brother. Bye.